What if financial stress is the thing holding most people back and not the lack of ambition? I sat down with Alok, CEO and co founder of SmartPath, and the mind behind Frank, the first AI native financial advisor for Main Street. We discussed what financial wellness really means and why the conversation matters right now. Alok, thank you so much for joining me today on Passion Projects.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So I would love to just kind of get into it and ask you right out. You've helped move people from chaos to confidence with their finances. What does financial confidence actually look like and feel like in real life?
Yeah, I think that there's probably a couple of big pieces to it. I mean, the first is just being able to make decisions and not have stress about them, like having confidence in the decisions you're making. There is no really right decision in personal finance. There's no really absolutely wrong decision. There's some that are better than others.
Yeah.
And then I think there's another piece of confidence that runs an undertone for people, which is an ability to look at your own financial life and be content with that. We can always look at other people. Maybe they have more money, maybe they have more things, maybe they have a better Instagram reel, whatever it may be. But financial confidence is being confident in the fact that, you know what, I am doing well for me and for where I want to be. And I can kind of live in that joy and happiness, and it's not impacted by what other people do. So that's really what we try to help people with, not just how to maximize your investments or some of these things. It's more of how to maximize your joy and happiness.
And for you, what first sparked your passion for helping people with financial wellness? And what made you get into this world of financial wellness?
Yeah, well, a lot of this traces back to my upbringing. So I grew up in an immigrant household. My parents immigrated here in the 60s. I was born in the 70s, and I watched I watched the power of basically living on half of what you make.
Mm.
And what that power created was a ton of optionality for my family and really for my parents. And ultimately that spawned down to us. It also created a ton of savings and investments and all of that. But the main thing is these were W-2 employees that literally just made the choice to not worry about the Joneses. Now, the other thing I witnessed was that they surrounded themselves with people who thought the same way. So it's a whole lot easier to kind of have that philosophy, if you will, on money when other people around you have that same philosophy. So they did this, and everyone in that community that I grew up in, everyone did well with money over time. And
Mhm.
none of them were business owners. None of them were, the millionaire next door type where they owned a company and those sorts of things. So I started toying with this when I got to college, and then really where I made the big leap was after the Great Recession. So I saw exactly what happened during the Great Recession. I was working in a consulting job. I'd been doing it for about a decade. And I was like, look, now or never. I need to either, I can talk a big game here, but I need to actually try to do something about it. So I literally left in 2010. I left a quite a lucrative position
Yeah.
to teach personal finance. I started with 6 people in a room and I taught for free. And I did that for years. And then companies started hiring me and then we built a business around it. But the genesis was a lot around my parents, a lot around my upbringing, and just watching the power of that.
And when you were teaching, was it because people were just illiterate with what they were doing with their finances that you felt there was a need to have some sort of resources for them?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a little bit more that people were being sold a bunch of stuff that they didn't need, and they
Mm,
were being sold those things through fear and greed.
mm,
So, somebody can be financially literate and still be sold somebody something that they don't need by another person whose entire objective is to sell you that thing. And so there's kind of those levels to this, right? There's levels to
yeah.
financial literacy. And so what I looked at during the Great Recession was, people were buying homes as if they were never going to go down in value, and people were getting put in loans. They were 100% stated. You could get 100% financing on a home just by telling your income. There was no income verification. So there were a lot of bad actors that kind of emerged in that process. And I was in my early 30s. I had enough background in business to be able to actually watch what was happening and to understand it. And so I looked at that as saying, wow, basically the middle class And the lower middle class is just basically kind of get screwed in this whole process. And so I wanted to
Yeah.
do something about it.
And you did. And what drove you kind of to make that decision to go into entrepreneurship?
Well, what's interesting is I don't ever really look at myself as an entrepreneur. I'm not
Mhm.
really a person who's like, oh, I want to try to start this business and I got this idea and let me start this business. It just emerged as like a problem I wanted to solve or at least help solve it
Yeah.
and then go and do the work to solve it. And it happened to become a business that has done quite well, but it took it wasn't really that was my driver. It's still not my driver today. I think entrepreneurship, quite frankly, is the most lonely, difficult way to solve a problem that, that anyone could take. I wouldn't wish it on many people.
Yeah.
All that said, for me, it happened to be something that fueled a fire for personal finance and for financial literacy. And, the business portion of it was a bit secondary.
I see. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, that kind of brings me to understanding what you've learned about how money affects people beyond just their wallets in terms of confidence, stress, and even career growth.
Well, I think money plays a massive role in how people feel about themselves.
Mm.
A lot of times people attach their self-worth to their financial worth. And I see that more and more at all levels. And part of that is just the culture and society we're in the United States. I mean, this is a capitalistic society, and that's kind of how things run, right? People
Yeah.
attach it to that. So that's a bit unfortunate, because quite frankly, there is a level of wealth that you need to be comfortable, and really much more beyond that doesn't create incremental comfort on a one-to-one basis. It's not linear beyond
Mhm.
that. It actually flattens out after a certain point where you become less comfortable and less happy and more stressed the more money you have. So there is this like, ideal place to be as it relates to finances. But back to your original question, I mean, I've just learned that people relate these things far more often than I wish they would. And from a literacy standpoint, you only need to know 4, 5, 6 things. I tell people that I wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal that went viral in 2016, 2015, somewhere around that time frame, about a decade ago. And that article, I wrote about my mother and how my mother turned $8 into a million. And basically, the two things she did was number one, she avoided everything she didn't understand when it came to money. You couldn't sell her anything because if she didn't understand it, she wasn't going to learn it from you. She
Yeah.
was going to wait and be like, I'll go figure this out myself. And if I need it, I'll call you. And
Mhm.
then two, she spent less than she made every single month for 40 years. So this doesn't have to be complicated, but it becomes more complicated in our society today. It doesn't need to be, even with what's out there. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I learned a lot of how like people interact with money, and I hate the fact that many folks kind of connect their self-worth to it.
Yes, I remember when I was growing up in high school reading a book, The Wealthy Barber. And the one lesson I learned from that book was pay yourself first. And I remember I would like work odd end jobs, but half my paycheck I would put towards my savings because I knew that, in some due time I might need that. But like it's always good to pay yourself first and to push forward. But is that statement, I guess, kind of still true today? Do you see I just feel like there's a gap when it comes to money and the way maybe those with lesser incomes know or have knowledge about it versus the wealthy. And then there's this middle ground. But do you see that kind of change or growth or trajectory like when it comes to learning?
Um, well, I think, look, pay yourself first if you can still
Mhm.
applies. It
Yeah.
won't not apply, right? Like savings is going to matter no matter how you cut it. Where you save it, how would you save it, all of that. The number one determinant of people's financial health is their savings rate. It
Mm.
isn't even whether they do Roth or traditional or they pick the right investments. Like obviously you want to invest, but you can be a dummy on all those things and have a high savings rate, and you're going to do just fine. And so I think that that still applies. Now, what has changed is how challenging it is for the middle class to do that now versus 30 years ago. Wages have not increased at the pace of inflation for decades and decades. And we've gotten a bifurcation of the people who make a lot of money in companies, the executive level, and everybody else. So when you can't make income kind of match what expenses are just because expenses are going up and income is staying relatively flat,
Mhm.
people have a problem. It's a frustrating problem. I mean, the math just doesn't work. The math
Mhm.
ain't mathin'. So I think that there is a structural issue that we have now, but the rules of the game haven't changed. They've just become significantly harder to implement.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that from what I see from people around me, and I guess just in the way the society is changing and shifting right now. Um, when it comes to your company, Frank, it's the first AI native financial advisor for Main Street. Why did you feel that this was the right time to bring AI into the financial wellness world?
Yeah. So our mission has always been the same, which is how do it's basically a financial advisor for the middle class. That was the mission in 2010. The the problem we faced, and we faced it all the way until now, which was that's very difficult to scale,
Mm,
especially to do that with humans. So the idea was, oh, you're going to get humans, you're going to give everybody an advisor. Most people can't afford that. So now you got a pricing problem. And then number two, you have an issue of just how do you scale a bunch of humans to do this for people who may have, you know, tens of thousands of dollars in their 401k and they're living, and they make decent money. So you have these people, and it's a vast majority of the population that do okay financially. It's a teacher married to a firefighter. They do pretty well financially, but they weren't really in the market or in the sweet spot for an advisor. So we had this issue. So what did we try to do? We tried to like fill it with education. Well,
mhm,
let's just educate the teacher and the firefighter to do this better. And what we found was that some people engage with that, but most people, they don't want to learn stuff. They just want the answer. They're
yeah.
like, I'd prefer to just give me the answer.
Yeah.
And most people we found loathe dealing with personal finance. It is they love other stuff in life. Money is not one of them. They like
Mhm.
having money, but dealing with personal finance, they don't get up in the morning and they get excited about the new Roth rules, right? Like that's just a weird person like myself that does that.
You and my
So
husband.
yeah, there you go. So when AI came out, I was like, well, now you can scale the human. You can give them a robot to talk to them about everything in a way that they like to be spoken to at a financial level that they are at. So it's not
Mhm,
talking down to them, it's not talking up to them with the tone that they want, with the structure that they want. You can do all that. And so we jumped at that opportunity to say, look, we got to take a stab at this. I mean, we have tens of thousands of hours of content that we've
mhm,
built over the years for education. And I think, what do we have, like, I don't know, tens of thousands of hours of coaching and advising too. So we have all of this resident knowledge. Well, we can train the robots to engage the way they're supposed to. And that's exactly what Frank is. The other thing with Frank that's I found counterintuitive, even for myself, and you may say this with your husband, is that typically the world of software goes out and says, hey, I am going to build this personal finance tool that you can use instead of your Excel sheet. And, so I'm just using that as an example. Instead of your
mhm,
Excel and your this and that, I'm going to give you this tool. It's going to have all these bells and whistles, and it's going to do certain stuff for you. So now
mhm,
you've got this new cockpit that you can use that's going to help you do all this stuff. Well, that's awesome, except for that's built for the CFO of the household.
mhm.
What about all the people who loathe doing this? Giving them a better cockpit is not actually what they want. They're like, shit, I didn't want to do this to begin with. Excuse my
Yeah.
language. So Frank kind of turns that on its head. And, where our focus is like, let's just monitor all the stuff that you should be monitoring and tell you
Mhm.
when things are wrong. So you don't even actually have to do anything. You can talk to Frank whenever you want if you want to.
Yeah.
But we're going to serve up these monitors and give you alerts when, hey, your investments are off relative to your risk profile. Or, hey, by the way, did you know you could do this? Here's an opportunity that you may not have heard of, to contribute to the Roth or to contribute to your retirement plan using catch-up contributions because you're over the age of 50. So it's things that whenever we talk to folks that don't love, we call them forced adulting, when they were like, I kind of have to do this. What we found is they're like, I don't even know what I don't know. I don't even know what
Yes,
to ask you. I don't know what I don't know. So let me
that's me.
pause there. But yeah, so we built it for you. We built this for people like you.
I can't wait to take a stab at it to learn more about it as well. Because what have been some of your testimonials? What have people thought about the use case that you've done with the technology?
Yeah, it's been so interesting. We get people asking about, like, we had somebody just send us a note that they refinanced their car loan. They didn't even know they could do that. They didn't even know to think about that.
Wow.
And they saved a ton of money. So it's things like that where Frank can serve up that kind of stuff. And Frank is looking, it knows what your car loan rate is. Frank knows what the rates are going right now. They know what your credit score is. So they can just tell you, if you'd like to do this, here you go. And Frank is product agnostic. Like, you don't have to do it. It's your advisor. It's what an advisor should do for you. They should tell you when there's opportunities. They should tell you when there's risks. And they should, quite frankly, tell you when you're doing things well so that you can sleep at night. Kind of comes back to your very first question. What's financial confidence? Well,
Yes.
the ability to know that I'm doing the right stuff and that, when things go wrong, I'm fixing it. And if there's some opportunities I should take advantage of, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. And then the rest of the time spend with your friends and your family and go on your vacations and, enjoy life. We only get one of those. So
Right.
enjoy it. That's what Frank's ethos is.
I love that. And as the financial world is shifting more into this world of AI, new tools and changing the workplace benefits, what do you see as the future of financial wellness in corporate America? Is it more of a focus on AI?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say this. I think AI is going to be used significantly to encourage people to spend more money. I
Mm,
don't think so. For every, if you kind of imagine, it is incredibly easy to do things in personal finance that you probably shouldn't do. So I can sign up for a credit card at the end of the target line, just because somebody asked me if I wanted a card. So
yeah,
it's super easy. But if I want to roll over my 401k to an IRA, I mean, I'm talking weeks and steps and, boom, boom, boom. I got to do all these things. Now there's some new tech that's helping with that.
right.
But we've made it difficult to do the right thing. And we've made it really easy to do the wrong thing. I don't think that's going to change. I think AI is going to make it to where if you look at an ad, even if you glance at it for more than 3 seconds, AI is going to put you in that ad if it needs to, with
Mhm.
you wearing those clothes or those shoes to get you to buy it. So I actually think AI, I think AI isn't going to change the general narrative of we're in a capitalistic society. We want to sell more stuff. That said, I think there'll be companies like Frank and others. I mean, we welcome kind of everybody in this industry that I believe are going to be able to build AI for good as it relates to people's personal finances and their financial planning. I think it's opening up a much larger market of folks that can get unbiased guidance. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Whether it will be at the same rate that AI provides bias guidance, I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know. I don't know how confident I am in that, but at least it's opened up the door for unbiased guidance to everybody.
That's great. And if you could change one thing about how companies support their employees with financial health, what would that be?
The thing that I've always noticed with companies is that you're asking a person in HR or benefits who are like very wonderful people, like they care about people. That's why they got into that space.
Yeah.
You're asking them to become a financial expert to then be able to evaluate vendors and solutions and packaging and structure. And that's not fair to them. That's not what they're trained in. I wish more and more companies would bring in even an advisor, but bring them on staff internally to be the more quarterback of their solutions. That's everything from healthcare to their benefits package is really what impacts people. So their benefits package and their comp packages, having an advisor internally, a human advisor internally that guides the organization on the personas within their organization and what packaging of benefits makes sense. That's what really companies need, so that
Mhm.
the benefits and HR teams are not caught trying to be financial advisors.
Definitely. I mean, you've touched on this briefly in our conversation, but you've been able to impact tens of thousands of families through financial education. What has been the most powerful story of the transformations that you've witnessed? I know you've talked about your mom, but have there also been other standouts that come to mind?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty. I mean, there was a couple that started with us in 2014 and was $130,000 of student loan debt, um, decent income, and conscientious about their money. They'd just
Mhm.
gotten married. So, it could be what it was. And they were living in an apartment.
Yeah.
Now, zero student loan debt,
Wow.
homeowners with nearly 50% equity in the home and have about a half a million dollars saved in retirement. They just had their first child. I
That's
mean,
amazing.
yeah, that type of stuff. Um, we constantly see people who thought that they couldn't retire, and then now they're retiring 3 years
Mm.
early. They
Mhm.
actually had the finances to retire. They just didn't have anybody who could, like, put the puzzle together for them and help them understand it. So, they're getting 3 years of their life back, if you will. I mean, I'm not they were able to now go do some things, and they're in good health, and
Yeah.
so we see stories like that. We see debt payoff stories that are tremendous. We see stories of people building small emergency funds. We see people who have thoughtfully navigated their child to the right college to make sense financially. So they're
Mm.
not dropping $80,000 a year in Parent Plus loans for a school in a situation that isn't going to pay off for that child.
Right.
So there's all kinds of stories through this that we've seen. I mean, we had recently a woman who reached out to us after coming to, she probably came to 30 or 40 classes, and she had saved a $1.6 million dollars, and she's about to retire, and her average expenses in retirement are going to be about 3,000 bucks a month because she had
Mhm.
paid everything off.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's joy. you know,
Mhm.
she has all the
Yeah.
options in the world. I think she's more stressed about what am I going to do with my time.
Right.
Yeah, that's for somebody else to help you with. Like
Yeah. That's
that's
another conversation.
another
For
conversation.
sure.
I don't know if we're necessarily the most skilled there.
Have you had any stories of, based on the guidance that you provided them, retiring early at an earlier age than the expected?
Yeah, as I'd mentioned, yeah, we see that over and over again that folks often they have to figure out a few things that they learn from us is that I got to figure out healthcare before
Mhm.
Medicare. So I got to fill that gap.
Right.
And then I got to figure out whether I need to or should or shouldn't or whatever with Social Security.
Mhm.
But over and over again, we see people who are like, I don't think I could retire. I'll give you an example. We had a woman who came in and she was 61. And by the way, when I said things like came in and stuff, we do all of this at the corporate level. So this is usually over the phone or
Yeah.
this is a virtual, right? Came in is kind of a term of the past. That said, so she had roughly saved about $200,000 in her 401k. And she comes in and she's like, I know that I'm in, I'm open to work until 70 to get the largest Social Security check. I don't know if I'm going to be able to retire. I'm a little bummed about it. You could tell,
Mhm.
you could see it in her face. Well, we go through her analysis and we find that first of all, her Social Security check was going to be 1,600 bucks a month, even if she took it at 62, right?
Right.
And then we look at her expenses. She had paid everything off. The most we could make her expenses and be thoughtful about it. She lived outside of Atlanta in a rural town in Georgia. The most we could make of her expenses was $1,300 a month. I couldn't even I was throwing stuff in there that she didn't even want. I was like, "You want to visit the kids?" She's like, "I don't really like my kids." "You What about the grandkids?" She's like, "Yeah, they're kind of brats." So it's like literally I'm trying to throw expenses on there just to be conservative, and
Yeah.
we got $1,300. The house is paid off, car is paid off, from food wasn't that much. It was just her and her spouse. So all of that said, the picture was you're not even going to dip into the 200. You could retire tomorrow. Now, there were other considerations we need to make around healthcare and stuff. But point being was she absolutely could retire significantly before she thought she could. She
That's
didn't
amazing.
know how to put that story together.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of joy we get from
I
when
was
when
gonna say
we
that must bring so much joy to
yeah.
just know that you can help and fulfill their needs for sure.
And you can see it in her face. Her
Yeah.
facial features changed significantly just within the call. Where and this one I happened to do where I was like, "Ma'am, you could retire at 62 if you wanted. We got to think through a little bit of like what your company's offering on healthcare and Cobra and a few other things, but you could. I don't necessarily think you should. I would probably give it a few extra years for a lot various reasons, make the math a little bit safer, and we're more conservative in our thinking. But I want you to know that you are not going to be working till 70 unless you choose to.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
That's
yeah, so it's a lot of fun. You see the light bulb go off for people. You see people that for once in their life, somebody has genuinely cared about them.
yeah.
And that is not always the case in the world of personal finance.
And one thing that you just mentioned, fun. I feel like it's so great to see that you can have fun with your finances or with when you attain financial wellness, which is something sometimes people feel is unheard of, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You can have fun. You can have fun along the journey.
Yeah.
The vast
Yeah.
majority of people don't know how to interpret their finances. It isn't that they're doing something good or bad. Now, look, if you're in a ton of debt, you don't save any money, and you're just running up credit cards to buy things, that's that story that we hear a lot of. And we definitely have massive amounts of credit card debt right now in our society. That story is not the only story that's out there.
Definitely. I mean, you've written a book, you've built startups, you've balanced family life. What role do you find that passion has played in shaping your journey as a leader?
Originally, it played a massive role.
Mm,
Originally, when I first started, it was the driver of a lot of things. I was passionate about it. I was interested. Like when people's light bulb went off, you get a bunch of adrenaline and endorphins from that.
yeah,
So, originally passion played a really big role in it. Over time, though, I'm 15 years in. Over time, passion plays the role. It's almost like a low grade level of passion that says it plays a role of keeping you going, but it can't, that it just doesn't have sustaining power.
right.
Structure, systems, those types of things, there do a much better job. And I also think with passion, and I know that this is passion projects as the, but I would say that passion is like, it's like taking a 5-hour energy. So yeah, you'll get a rush from it. It can drive you, but if you're dependent on that to
Mm,
sustain a business or to sustain an initiative, it doesn't even have to be a business. It can be a side hustle, whatever it is. It's going to be very challenging because there's only so much 5-hour energy you can take,
yeah,
and over time, the 5-hour energy has less of an impact than it did the first time you took it. So, I think for me, passion was the 5-hour energy at first, but now, yeah, I'm passionate about it. But I'm far more in a system of what I get up and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just do those things. And then I have dinner with my wife. My son's in college now. So I have dinner with my wife. I go out with friends on the weekends or maybe during the week, play a little bit of golf. Like I try to enjoy a more holistic life where I'm
mhm.
still passionate, but it's not the end all be all.
And it's not what specifically defines you either, right?
No,
Like there are more facets of what you do in life that you're
it's
able
almost,
to
yeah. And that's almost necessary.
yeah,
For
yeah,
me, let me take that back. For me, that it was necessary is I had to define myself
mhm,
outside of the realm of my business.
yes.
And that also changes the game in terms of your staying power.
And that puts it's and like as we talk about financial wellness, there's that aspect of wellness for yourself, that mental
Yeah.
awareness, and for you too. Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, you're always balancing that is figuring
Yep,
out wellness for yourself. For me, financially, we're well, but beyond that, there are all kinds of other aspects of wellness.
exactly, exactly. What's one piece of advice you'd give someone listening who's feeling overwhelmed by their finances and doesn't know where to start?
Yeah, I always tell people the first step you want to take is to figure out really where you're standing. It's like I'm overwhelmed by this trip from Atlanta to New York, but am I really in Atlanta? Because
Mm,
maybe I'm already in DC and I just didn't know that. So I find that before you start doing stuff in terms of actively, I need to take this action, I need to go buy this insurance, which may make you feel better,
yeah,
try to get a realistic view of like, where am I? You might be doing a whole lot more right than you thought you were, and you're just not giving yourself credit for it. So if you can find that starting point first, the journey gets a ton easier. And oftentimes I find people, they don't know where their starting point really is.
exactly. That's nailed it. uh, I love to take this time to have a little fun, more fun than we
All right,
are already having. Let's do
let's
a
do it.
little rapid fire. Okay, are you ready? Coffee,
Yeah, I'm ready. I think so.
coffee or tea?
Coffee,
Spreadsheet or whiteboard?
whiteboard.
First thing you'd splurge on if you got a sudden 10K.
I'd take a golf trip.
Nice. What golf course?
Pebble Beach.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. One book besides your own you think everyone should read about money.
Oh, hands down, The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel.
Amazing. Well, Ella, thank you so much for joining me here on Passion Projects today. It's so lovely.
You got it. You got it. I appreciate the questions and good luck to you and the podcast. Take care.
Thank you. If this episode gave you even one new perspective on money and confidence, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs it. And I'd love to hear from you. What does financial confidence mean to you? Drop me a line. And until next time, I'm Kyle, and I'll see you again. Take care.